Hi, my name is Lila Bashan. I'm an international development professional, and everything we talk about are my own personal views, not the position of the U.S. government. I'm lucky to be joined today by David Beckett, the Vice President of Innovation at FAST. Hi, David.
Hi, Lila. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. Can you tell me a little bit about FAST and what your position there entails?
Sure. So FAST is the Foundation for Armenian Science and Technology. We are an organization dedicated to driving science and technology innovation and advancing research and development. My position with the innovation unit is designed on several, so I have a couple of responsibilities. First is entrepreneurial development, so we run some entrepreneurial programs. And then the other is larger scale innovation projects. Currently we have a really exciting project, which is an innovation district that we're working with the Armenian government on. So this is a really large project. Right now, I think the organization has around 35 employees. It's growing and it's expanding, and it's a really exciting time to be involved in technology and innovation in Armenia.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So you're American here in Armenia. How did you get started on your global career?
So I was in the military for 5 years in the Marine Corps. I spent most of that time overseas. When I originally got out of boot camp, I was assigned to Quantico. I absolutely hated it. It was boring. So I figured out a way to get into the Marine Security Guard program, which is one of the elite programs in the Marine Corps. And then my first duty station was the embassy in Jakarta, Indonesia.
Cool.
And that was cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
It was a heightened time, I think, like we're experiencing now. I arrived on September 15th, 2001.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So right after September 11th.
And the Marine Security Guards, they guard U.S. embassies abroad, right?
Correct.
That's their main
Correct.
position.
Yeah. You would know that well.
But you actually did it.
See the guys
yeah.
going in and out. And then after that, my last station was Malta, which is where I think more of my international journey started, because that's when I actually ended up meeting my wife. My wife is Armenian. Yeah. She was doing her bachelor's degree at the University of Malta. In international relations. So we met there. That was my last station. So we both finished, ironically, at the same time. That started this long distance relationship. So I went back to the US, finished my bachelor's degree.
Where did you go?
SIUE, Southern Illinois University of Edwardsville.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I like acronyms with a lot of words and a long.
What did you study?
I studied political science.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so my goal actually was to become a foreign service officer. I think I took the exam 4 times.
Fun. It's like a hobby almost at that point.
Yeah, I think it was funny because I felt completely dejected by this process. 4 times failing it. I was always picking political affairs officer because that's what I wanted to be. And then I found out later that was a very competitive one to be in. And then along the way, as I met more foreign service officers, almost every one of them said, "It's okay, we failed a few times. Maybe not you, but
But you're on the right path. That door closed, but obviously for a good reason.
Yeah.
Right?
So that door closed. I finished school 2 years later, and was offered a job as a government contractor, project manager, running large-scale government projects.
Oh, cool.
And my first assignment was Berlin, Germany.
Awesome.
Building the new embassy in Berlin. Well, it's not very new now anymore. But
the new U.S. embassy.
New U.S. embassy.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was, by the time I left there, I was a senior project manager running the whole project. I think I was there from 2006 till the end of 2009.
Oh, wow.
Almost 3 years.
Yeah.
And then we came back did some time in DC. I ran a project at Fort Meade, running a project at Fort Meade.
What kind of project?
It was a construction of another building.
Can you not
yes.
talk about what
another building?
What the building
another
was?
building.
Okay.
And that was fun, but I got tired of it.
Yeah.
You know, it was kind of the same thing over and over again. And at the same time, Irina got accepted to do her PhD at Cambridge.
Oh, wow.
Which...
And were you married at that point?
So we got married at the end of that point. So
okay.
It was 2009 where we ended up getting, or 2008 we ended up getting married. 2009 we ended up moving back. So by 2010, she needed to do research on Armenia, which brought us to Armenia.
Oh, cool. And you had obviously visited before, you know, dating in Armenia?
Yeah, so several visits starting in 2003. So I was familiar with what I was getting into. It's a little bit different moving here than being a tourist.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can attest to this.
Yeah.
But in 2011, we officially moved to Armenia. I guess that's kind of the next part of the story. We ended up opening a cafe and called the Green Bean Coffee Shop. Expanded really quickly. It was the first non-smoking cafe restaurant in the whole country.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Which is cool because now if you go anywhere in Armenia, you can pretty much find no smoking in a lot of places.
Yeah.
Not everywhere, but it's growing. So I think we were kind of pioneers in that sector.
Well, and the Green Bean's still around and has multiple locations.
It is still around.
Yeah.
So we officially left the business or sold the business in 2017.
Oh wow.
Because that's when I was kind of not recruited, but I was very forcefully asked to run for Congress.
So you left Armenia and went back to America to run for Congress?
Correct. So in 2017, we came back to the U.S., ran for Congress. It was a great experience, loved every second of it. Probably would never do it again unless the kids were grown and out of the house because it is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job, requires full commitment, which we gave, but I sacrificed a lot of time with the family at the time.
Yeah.
And after we lost in the primary, just so happened again, serendipitously, I guess that's kind of the way traveling and global experience works, the revolution in Armenia kicked off.
Wow.
And Irina started getting calls. You know, she was one of the most educated people in the Armenian, young people in the Armenian community, very vocal, outspoken. So she started getting calls to come work in the government. So I told her, listen, this is your time.
Yeah.
Let's go back.
Wow.
You know, so
that gives me goosebumps. It's just amazing that you guys, one, it's amazing you're so supportive of each other and pursuing each other's dreams. And two, it's incredible you've taken and been given these really outstanding opportunities. Yeah. And so you found yourself back here in Armenia, and so then how did you maneuver your career from there?
Yeah, so it was interesting. When we came back, I honestly thought this was going to be my cooling off period. I was like, okay, let's decompress. I'll maybe be retired for a couple, a year, a couple years. Yeah, of course, catch up with the kids.
Yeah.
And within a couple months, some emails have been sent back and forth telling me, hey, Dave, have you seen, FAST? You might want to meet with the CEO. So I met with the CEO, Armen Arujan. Really liked the vision and the mission of the organization. It's really an organization designed to build the science technology ecosystem. So for me, that was an interesting sphere.
Yeah.
I had no experience in it, which is great. I love that.
It's good to take a chance on something new.
This has been my life. Go after exactly what I don't have any experience in. It was impactful, something that could really change the country. So I started that, let's see, I'm going on like a year, so it was September 2018. So I'm going a little over a year now.
That's awesome.
And I loved it, love every second of it.
And do you do your job in English or in Armenian?
No, most of my job, look, so this, embarrassingly enough, my Armenian's not good enough to get by in the professional world.
Yeah.
So I'm fortunate enough to have an environment where everybody speaks
Yeah,
English.
yeah.
The CEO is an American Armenian, so
Oh,
he primarily speaks English as well.
Cool.
So.
That's
it's
great.
cool.
Well, and I'm always telling people apply for jobs you're not 100% qualified for, because you might be the most qualified person, or they might really see something in you. And so I love that this vice president job, you're like, well, I'm not, a technology expert, but I have what it takes to really make an impact in that position. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this has been my life. Yeah. And I think that's where people need to look at most people in leadership positions nobody's 100% qualified for those jobs that are out there. I mean, even when you look at like foreign service officer and you start to look at the requirement, you're never going to be meet every single requirement. But it's the intangibles, it's the things you've learned along the way. It's the fact that when I go into a position like that, I spent my first probably 8 months just reading every book on innovation that I can find, on technology, AI, data science, computer sciences, because I wanted to, really embrace it and get involved. And that's why I'm still around today, because I enjoyed that. I enjoyed learning it, and I picked it up pretty fast. So.
Yeah. But that's what I love, is like the challenge and the learning, and it's so cool.
Sure.
But so why did you want to work abroad in the first place?
That's a great question. So it's not that I wanted to work abroad. I think it's more because I've always been a little bit of, I can never settle. I don't like settling. And thankfully I'm married to someone who doesn't want to settle. We never thought of ourselves as having, a 20-year, 30-year career in one place, where we, get a nice house and cars and all of that. So when I first joined the Marines, that was my first step in adventure. And then being bored with an office job in the Marines was pushed me into the MSG program. And I think, traveling in the Marine Corps and then getting to the end of my term and realizing I don't want to be a Marine anymore. I want to be a Foreign Service officer or travel more. So for me, I think once you get a taste of life outside of your hometown, I mean, I'm Midwestern American, small town in Illinois, Southern Illinois. So I think once you get a taste of the world outside, once you start to meet new people, understand new cultures, it becomes almost addictive. It's like, why would you want to settle in one place?
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting, for the last decade at least, you've been mostly in either America or Armenia, but it seems like in a lot of ways you've been constantly reinventing yourself and trying new things, and managing construction projects, or opening a small business, or running for Congress, or being a vice president. Like, you can still evolve and grow.
Sure.
It's really cool.
And that's a great point. So when I say kind of settle, it's not about the location necessarily. It's settle in my life. I've always want to learn something new, do something new, take my experience and do it at a bigger level. At some point in time, everything that you do needs a next step, right? So
you're a seeker.
Yes, I guess.
Maybe that sounds corny, but
no, I'm down for it. I'm a seeker. Yeah.
So what advice do you have to someone who's just starting out on their career, their seeking?
Right. To sound even more corny,
please.
I think it's this idea of just kind of do it, and trust your instincts a little bit. You're going to screw up. We made a lot of mistakes along the way. It hasn't been easy. Early on, we spent too much time apart. Irina and I, in early days. There was even a 10-month period where she was doing her PhD in Cambridge with our son, while I was still in the U.S. working and doing other things.
Wow.
And we thought that was the right way. Like, okay, let's be ambitious. I'll continue trying to build things, and then you do this. And looking back, it would have been better just to be together. That's a lesson we had to learn, because now we have realized we're never going to do a journey without each other. So it's like, okay, we needed that lesson. So I think, you have to trust your gut. You have to, adventure is not for everybody. Some people want to settle down. That's fine. But I think for the adventurous people, you'll, don't have regrets. Make those decisions, those big decisions. And I would say the last kind of big point in this is that if you're in a partnership, specifically like ours, is that support each other. You know, if and it goes both ways.
Yeah.
You know, it's we live in Armenia, which is a beautiful country, but it also has its patriarchal tendencies, right? And I think one of the things that I enjoy the most is kind of getting to teach my kids in this environment how it is to be a equally participating husband. You know, being a part of the taking care of the home, taking care of the kids. You know, so I think that's part. So trust your gut, make those big jumps.
Yeah.
You know, it's because you don't want those regrets at the end that you didn't do it. And I think it's also, if you're in a partnership, that it should be equal.
I love that. I love that.
It should be an equal journey.
And your life is richer for that also.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. We wouldn't be here if I didn't, and she didn't, if Irina wasn't willing to be a PhD and say, I'm willing to give up that PhD for an indefinite period of time so you can go change the world as a congressional candidate and then potential congressman. And then we wouldn't be here in Armenia if I wouldn't have said, okay, you know, you've done your role as a great partner supporting this. It's your time.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's got to be equal.
I love that. That's awesome. So if you could go back to you when you were joining the Marine Corps and interested in the MSG program, what would you tell yourself? What's the advice you would have to yourself?
Whoa, man. You know, I think probably the biggest advice early on that I wish I would have had, that I I look back and say, man, I missed those moments, is really take advantage of the connections and the networks that you build early on.
Right.
Because I think as a young person, you don't understand the power of network and the people that you meet in your life. And I think early on, I met so many great, influential people. I created a lot of bonds, but I let those bonds fade because then you go on and travel. I think now, if you look at the last probably decade, I've really held on to any relationships that I've built or networks that I've built, kept communication with people, because I realize how important those networks could be in the future. I mean, you don't know how, but they end up panning out. You know, you end up, I'll end up traveling somewhere and be like, oh man, I know someone there, and the next thing you know, you've got a connection. You know, and I think that's what I would tell myself is early on, as young Dave. You know, pay more attention to the people you meet in the networks.
And nurturing those
relationships.
Totally, because you never know where an opportunity will come from or where you can provide an opportunity to someone. And,
absolutely.
And I realized when I was starting out, I thought it was kind of like sleazy to like have networks or like talk to people and try to get advice from them, but it's actually not, because we all want to help each other, and we all, if you're genuine about investing in a relationship, that's a good thing, and our world revolves around relationships.
Well, that's a great word though you used, is genuine, because I think there's a big difference. There's a big difference between the people that understand the power of networks, but they use it not in a sleazy way, but they use it in a disingenuous way. They use it because they feel like there's going to be some gain personally, financially, whatever. But I think, so maybe a little piece of advice inside there would be authentic and authenticity inside your networking, because, also networks and communication, especially now we're living in this very small country, authentic relationships are super important. And I've seen, being in Armenia, I've seen dozens of expats and diaspora Armenians, repats, come to Armenia disingenuously and inauthentically try to create an environment, but they never really create bonds with the people here. And when you're in a country like this, it's almost like a village. The bonds are deep, the relationships are deep, but they can also be fragile if you're using them the wrong way. And I think for us, I knew this coming in. It's one of I really cared more about creating relationships and building relationships with people than I cared about what they could do for me. Yeah. And I think that has, over 9 years now, we have a deep friendship circle that is with kids and friends and family that is far more important than any, of the work we're doing or the business we're doing. And I think people see that, and that's really what's going to make you successful. So it's very important that authenticity is inside of your goal to network and create relationships.
I love that. And just in general, it's good to be authentic.
Well, in general. I think it's the kind of the authenticity then builds the network, right?
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Right. So if you're not even going into it with the networking personality, that's just a lesson learned. But you're going into, I want to authentically communicate with people. You tend to have better, deeper relationships.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. Do you have
Thanks for having me.
Last words, parting words of wisdom?
I think life is really short. So I think we need to really, I think if there's one thing I've learned over the last kind of decade is to live a purpose-driven kind of life and to take advantage of all the opportunities we can and not take it for granted, and also to be open-minded to the world, because it is a beautiful place. And I think it's, traveling with a family and just seeing new places, it really makes your life better and enriches your life. So I think that's my parting words, just take advantage of it and really embrace it and experience it.
I love that. A purpose-driven life. That's awesome. Well, thanks so much for listening, and please subscribe and leave a comment or a question, and share with anyone you think would find interesting, and know that you are on your way.